Okay, we're all set.
All right. Well, very good. Well, thank you all for coming today for our Skills USA Minnesota Business and Industry panel. We've got three wonderful people here to go ahead and share some of their background, their journey, and their talents that they have. So hopefully you learn a little bit, ask some questions. Let's all get smart through this. I'm Jason Bruns, and I am the director of the Minnesota State Engineering Center of Excellence. And we do Case 16 outreach for engineering and engineering technology programs. And we support all 30 colleges and all 7 universities across the mid-state system in engineering and engineering technology. So welcome, and we're so proud to have you and have you come and participate with us today. So with that then, please mute your microphone during the panel. That's just out of respect. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to address those as we go through. We'll be recording this session, so this is out of courtesy to you to acknowledge the fact that we'll be recording that, and it'll be used for educational purposes. You will have an open opportunity for Q&A at the end for our panel, so please feel free to unmute at that point, so you can write your questions down and share it then if you would like. All the PowerPoint slides will be available on Sched. Now, what's very important here is that you'll find at the end of the presentation there's some very nice links there that are available for you for reference and that kind of thing. So that's why it's nice to go ahead and download the presentation if you can. And if you'd like to connect with our panelists following this discussion, please send your inquiry to Jessa at executive.director@minskillsusa.org. So let me get my stuff going and introduce my wonderful panelists. The first one that I'll introduce is Sean Collins. Sean Collins is an applications engineer with 3M. He's been an advanced application engineer with 3M's automotive aftermarket division for 10 years. He worked for 26 years as an ASE Master iCar Platinum Collision Technician, and he has been an iCar instructor for 25 years and was recognized as Instructor of the Year in 2009. And received the iCar Tech Center Award in 2011 for his work as a pilot class instructor and on new class development. He is also administrator for the iCar steel and structural and aluminum welding qualification tests. He worked as a verified coach or Verifax coach inspector for 3 years, has written articles to trade publications such as Edmunds, Auto Body Repair News, and Auto Body Journal, and is a frequent speaker at trade events such as NACE and SEMA. He has been the Minnesota State Skills USA Plastics Repair segment leader for 25 years and member of the National Skills USA Technical Committee for the past 5 years. And his favorite part of work is that favorite aspect of his work is that we can influence an industry through innovation. So very proud to have Sean to join us today as well. And we also have Denise. Denise McLanahan is with Granite Inliner LLC, and she's vice president of that business in Indiana. And she gets the privilege of leading Granite Inliner for a $275 million pipeline removal company nested in the larger transportation-focused Granite Construction Company. Granite Liner has 900 team members scattered in 15 offices across the United States, plus 3 offices in Canada. They provide products and services that restore underground infrastructure. Their business has manufacturing, design, and true field construction elements to it. What they do makes a difference. They give a new life to essential infrastructure, which protects the environment for generations to come. She graduated from Purdue University with a degree in civil engineering and a licensed engineer in 7 states. She started a career in the consulting engineering world and transitioned over to inliner and construction in 2002, and she never looked back. Today, she heads an amazing team, all while raising 3 teenage daughters. Ask about what opportunities exist for women in construction. Ask her about how to have a successful and fulfilling career and also raise a family. And finally, recognize the fact that she's been doing this for 27 years. Ask her what she learned along the way. So those are some opportunities there. Her favorite aspect about work, as you can see, the team that I get to work with every day. So very proud and happy to have Denise with us as well. Doug Haas, he's president and CEO of Crown Rental Company Incorporated. Doug grew up on a farm and after high school attended 1 year of farm equipment mechanic program at vocational school. And while attending VOTEC, he worked for a Sinclair gas station chain. And after he completed his first year of school, he became a manager for them. Doug left Sinclair to be a mechanic for Midas, and after a couple of years got promoted to manager. Doug decided he wanted to do something different, so he attended night school at a VOTEC for heavy truck mechanics. And after graduating, he started looking for a job and found a mechanic position at a rental company. Doug was hired as a first employee and began his career in rental. Over the past 32 years, Doug has held every position within the company and assisted in the expansion to 3 locations. Doug and his wife purchased the company from the founder in 2017, and over the years, Doug has become involved in the state and national rental association, volunteering for various committees and board positions. Doug is currently the Region 6 Director for the American Rental Association, covering Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri. In this position is Doug's responsibility to fill the ARA's strategic plan, which includes education, workforce development, technology, market intelligence, and consumer awareness for our members. So that's a lot in a nutshell. I'm really proud to have these people with us today. And what Doug finds great about what he does is that no 2 days are the same. And I think that that's how we got to look at that, that every day is going to be a new day. And as we roll forward with that, there's new opportunities that we can achieve. So with that, then I want to go ahead and ask our panelists the challenging questions about their careers and about their life. So I talked a little bit about the pathway, but let's talk about some of the rocks in that pathway to your current role. So I gave a little background about you. Doug, let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of those rocks. Can you help me out with what those were in your current role and what that challenge was?
Well, you know, for me in the current role, I mean, it was having a well-rounded knowledge, I guess, going into it. And I had that desire to learn more too. So it's one thing about rental. It's not just one thing every day. There's, 500 different items that you got to learn. And so it's fun to learn new equipment. And helping the customers is very satisfying.
Good. So it sounds like customer service and trying to learn every day were some things that you kind of took out of that, right? And found value in that. You know what? I'd like to go ahead and ask Denise. Now, Denise, you also had you've got a long role in your career as well, Denise. Speak to me about, what were some of those things along that path? When did you really decide I'm going to stick in that path? And how many times did you say, oh no, here's my engineering degree. Where am I going to go off with this? And how am I going to continue on where I'm going to go? So what were some of the rocks that kind of shifted you around? Oh, you're still on mute, Denise.
Operator error.
So, no, we got you. Very good.
Okay, perfect. So I got my start in Southern Indiana. So we found out on a previous phone call that several of us have roots to farms. So I grew up on my grandparents' farm. And I think the first rock that I hit was, I came from a rural community. Living on the farm with my grandparents, I got the opportunity in 7th grade to go shadow my best friend's father for a day. He was a civil engineer. He worked in a maintenance department. And after shadowing him for the day, I was instantly hooked. I knew that's what I wanted to do. He was dealing with construction projects and plans, and he was directing work and seeing things getting built. So I went home that afternoon, and I'll never forget this day. I told my grandmother, I said, Grandma, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Purdue University. I'm going to become an engineer, and that's where I'm headed in life. And my grandmother, as serious as can be, looked at me and said, honey, I really just don't understand why you want to drive a train for the rest of your life. I don't understand it. So my first little rock that I hit was when I was a 7th grader, and I had to explain to my grandmother what an engineer was. I had to, tell her what that meant and what opportunities came with that. As I went through college, I had a few rocks along the way there, and that I was in the minority when I was in school. I'll be 110% honest. I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that I was a class at Purdue that only had 6% women, but but just working through some of those things along the way. And that was the first time that I actually felt like, the construction industry didn't have as many women working in it. So that was a bit of a rock. But again, I never saw that as a rock because I don't see gender and I don't see race. So I never saw that. I thought it's just something you have to work through, just as I worked through growing up with my uncles and beating them at basketball. I just had to work through that as I went to college. Along the way, I started out in that consulting engineering role, and my path changed a lot. So when I initially started out, I started out doing plans and specs and working with designs, and I got bored pretty quickly. So I moved on to field inspection. And that wasn't exactly the fit that I thought I was going to land in. So I moved on to construction. And once I hit construction, I was hooked. I knew that that's where I wanted to land. I knew that that offered me the variety and the opportunities moving forward. So I chose that. And like you said, I've never looked back. And I like, the other people on the call with us, with Doug and Sean, I like the variety and like what I get to do. So my challenges kind of started early on. But again, I always try to turn those challenges into opportunities and take them a different path.
Awesome. And what I really like what you said, and one thing that I picked out of that was, that the influence of a job shadowing opportunity, and that there are opportunities that if you have an interest in something to kind of reach out for it. And what a great way that helped influence your career and the opportunities that provides, and learning a little bit more. Do I have interest in this or not? And that's a career exploration tool that I think are out there. And any adult would be more than willing to help a young person find out if this is something I would like to do for the rest of my life, or at least learn more about it. Now, Sean, you know what? You've been all over the map, I have to say, too. You're just as bad as everybody else in this list. So now talk to me about, some of the areas that you went into, and how did you figure out that, and what got you to where you're at now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And like you say, I mean, my path is very crooked, very weavy, and I really didn't have a plan going into it. And kind of going back to your first question, what are some of the rocks that you run into? That was probably the first one where I really didn't have a clear plan. And, I kind of wish I had sat down with somebody at some point and really made some goals and made a plan. And that really didn't happen for me until, the first real job that I had when I went to leave there. I sat down with my current boss, who knew I was leaving, and he took me out to lunch and said, "Hey, what are your goals? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years?" And that's where I first really started to make a plan like that. So that's a real strong suggestion on my part to anybody, is that, have those goals, know what the goals are, but at the same time, kind of go with the flow. Sometimes you get opportunities you might not even realize are there, that you never really thought about. And that's kind of what happened to me, where I was repairing people's vehicles on my own. And, I had the misfortune of losing the lease on my shop, on my building, which was a setback. But then it gave me another opportunity to go work for somebody else, where, it was one of those situations where I didn't know what I didn't know. And I walked into a very progressive collision repair shop and saw some of the things that they were doing that I didn't even know existed. So, that was kind of turning a bad thing into a good thing, where now here I am, where I have the ability to learn from other people and from this very successful business on, where to go from there, and, how you have to basically, master everything in those steps along the way. And that's another, suggestion, is that, hey, whatever you do, be the best at it that you can be. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's so true. Try to take it to another level where you're the overachiever, where they can't help but promote you because you're just overachieving in whatever step you're at. And that's kind of where I ended up at this collision repair shop, and got very good at what I did. And then when I moved on to another place, they were also very progressive and successful. So I just kind of went with the flow at that point where, you know, you just did the best you could and be the best you could. And, you know, when you're the people that you work for kind of brag about, you know, your abilities, that's a good thing. And it'll take you places. You know, you'll get opportunities that other people that are just kind of, oh, it's just another job, you know, and you're thinking of it as, hey, this is a career where I'm going to advance through this. You're gonna move along. So that's kind of the way I took it. As every step along the way, I tried to, you know, be the best and take it to another level. And that's where I started teaching. So I was working at another collision repair shop, and I got the opportunity to go to a training seminar where they trained instructors, and I loved doing that. It was really nerve-wracking to get up in front of people and speak, but that's something you get over time, and it was a challenge to me, but it was a lot of fun. And that's where I then started to really broaden the horizons, where, okay, now I'm not just locked in as a collision repair technician. Now I've got another path to go down, where I could go down the training path. So that's kind of, you know, I think important is to always keep those options open and always take advantage of those opportunities. And, you know, if you're really successful at what you're doing, you're going to get more opportunities.
Awesome. Awesome. I also have to admit, I had a supervisor that told me once, you know what, if you show a passion for learning, you'll grow. And every time that you want to come back and progress with that, that's opportunities. And
if I can just add to that. So, yeah. And that was, I think, the key to my success was I was a student of that particular industry, right? I paid attention to everything going on in that shop I was at, not just my job, but I paid attention to what everybody else was doing and what their roles were. And I learned a lot about the industry, and that was helpful as well, to be able to go down different paths, you know? So you're right. I mean, read everything you can get your hands on and really study the industry, and it'll really help you out.
Right. Well, let's roll on to our next question. So our next question that I have for you is, what are some pathways to employment in your industry, the training or education? And if they're interested in learning more about your industry, what are the opportunities to start working towards that opportunity? And I think summers and internships, and kind of speak to that, about what it's going to take to get into that area and that education, especially kind of where you're at. So Doug, I'll let you lead out with that one, if you would, please.
Sure, thanks. As far as pathways to employment, you know, we've got skilled trades in rental. You know, mechanics are one, and drivers, delivery drivers are another skilled career. We've got lots of entry level that you can get into, and we're a seasonal business, so summer jobs are abundant galore, because we're an equipment industry where, you know, summertime you get to go out and start working on the roads and buildings and not deal with winter. And in the event industry part of rental, you're setting up tents and doing grad parties and stuff, and it's good labor work.
So then, you know, Doug, talk to me about that. I mean, if I'm a high school student and I want to learn more in that industry, who do I approach? What do I do if I'm looking for, and not only that, you know, do I have the ability to come to you and say, hey, can I work in maybe helping with the mechanics so I can learn more about that area? Are there areas or aspects of that, or you work with your sales team? Are there different areas that they can ask to help with the summer?
Oh yeah, definitely. People coming out of school for just the summer, we get a lot of guys that spend their whole college career working for us during the summer and going back to college in the fall and back in the spring. And we've got one guy that worked for us in high school and then through college. He left to go into marketing, was his major. Left for a couple of years, decided, you know, he was working for a big banking outfit and wasn't a good fit. he came back and asked if he could come back here because it was the greatest job he ever had. And now he's actually an assistant manager for our largest store, and he does our marketing too, because he did learn that industry. So
Good.
it worked out well for us and for him too.
Yeah, it sounds like there's lots of opportunity, many avenues in that arena there.
Yeah, and we've hired mechanic. I had one mechanic that he was a cook for Buffalo Wild Wings, and he was tired of that industry. And he came and said, hey, I work on my own car. I've got some abilities, I got some tools, but I need more knowledge. And we hired him on as a entry-level mechanic, and he learned, and he stayed with us for 3 years, and progressed right up the ladder in his knowledge. One nice thing with the National Association, American Rental, with education being one of their strategic plans right now, is we've got online education, online certification for programs. They've got scholarships available, and then they've also got, I'll call them scholarships for stores too, where I can send my employee to a specific training class and they will pay us for sending them there.
And so that link, I think, is at the end of our presentation. So make sure that we take advantage of that. So, and that opportunity there. So it sounds like a lot of great stuff there. Denise, I'm gonna get after you now. Boy, help me out with what you have going on. And I think also speak to not only your education, but speak to some of the team that you have and the education that is part of your team as well. I think there's lots of opportunities to discuss that also, if you would, please.
Okay. Well, I'll start out with the overreaching statement that if you want a job in the construction industry, it's available to you today. So, and that applies to vertical construction, that's buildings, that's houses, that applies to horizontal construction, which are your roadways and your bridges. And that applies to what I'm in the underground construction. So the stuff that you don't see. If you want a job in the industry, it's available today. You just have to reach out and find it. I think, for the construction industry, there are a lot of resources like SkillsUSA that exist out there. There are lots of engineering societies and construction societies that you can reach out to for help and support. What I like to tell people to do is think outside the box. If there are companies that you're interested in, reach out to an HR director at one of those companies and ask them what opportunities exist. Get on the places where jobs advertise as you graduate from school, the Indeeds and the LinkedIn and some of those places. And if there's a job that looks like you're going to be interested in the future, reach out to that company and see what opportunities exist. So control your own destiny, be your own advocate and find your own path. I think sometimes picking up the phone gets you a lot more information and opens up some doors you didn't even know existed. When you look in the construction industry, and if you look at my team, and I think the teams that exist all across, it's everything you could look for. We have people that come to us right out of high school and say, I want to build things. I know what I want to do. So we have people that join us right out of high school. We have people that go to trade schools and come to us and say, I want to be a heavy equipment operator. How do I do that? What path do I follow? We have accountants, we have engineers, we have construction management professionals. We have safety professionals that all make up the team that ultimately has to be put together in order to make construction companies successful. I'll be 110% honest, and I truly believe that most all of the large construction companies out there offer summer internships and offer co-op programs. Granite is one of those. We employ and we put to work interns all over the United States. So it not only helps the interns and the people that we hire get a feel for what construction like, but it helps us teach them, hey, if you want to work for us, this is what we do, and we can see if it's a potential fit. So again, I think the opportunities in construction are endless. I think those opportunities will continue to grow, and it's everyone. It's everything from like I said before, the laborer that wants to join a field crew and travel the country and and get their hands dirty every day, all the way to the engineer who wants to help us design and put forth plans and specifications.
Nice, nice. And then now talk to me about, do you guys also offer scholarships for young people to apply to within your organization as well?
We do. We have scholarships internally that we offer, and then we also support the industry scholarships through places like NASCO, which is a society of sewer construction companies. So we take those, we blend them all together, and we make sure that everyone knows about that. So if you're interested in scholarships and internships, call me, call Jessa, call me, and we'll help connect.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Denise. Sean, you're in the hot seat now. So talk to me about, really the education that got you to where you're at. And I think you spoke a lot about is just research and learning and wanting to learn and the passion for learning, but also talk about some of the education pathways for not only yourself, but some of your coworkers as well that you engage with at 3M. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, I knew I was going to do that.
Hey,
So yeah, I'm kind of a different situation at 3M, because typically 3M only hires people with at least 4-year degrees. So I never got the opportunity to finish my degree. I went for 2 years to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and basically didn't have the financial ability to finish. So that's when I started to, get into the car repair business. So I never finished that, and you would think that would stop you from getting opportunities from companies like 3M. However, they are always looking for some people that have industry experience. So and that's where I fit in. So and we have several people in my department that are the same way. So just a little background on 3M. I'm in the collision repair in the automotive aftermarket division, but we have divisions in, medical and safety and electrical and, energy and all these different career opportunities. And they're the same way in a lot of these industries where, sure, maybe their product developers and their scientists have the 4-year degrees, but they're still looking for people that have industry experience, no matter which profession that you're looking at. They want to hire people that are in the home construction business and have been doing it for 20, 30 years, that have experience, that know that industry, because the scientists and the product developers never have that experience. And they need people like us to tell them what the industry needs as far as new innovative products. So don't ever think that, you're not qualified for something and not at least explore that opportunity, because some of these large companies are always looking for people with that industry experience. Now 3M does have a lot of internships in the summer. Again, mostly that's for 4-year degree people. However, we hire technicians all the time as well. So I know a lot of guys at 3M that started off as a technician. So what does a technician do? They do things like paint. So in the collision repair side, we do a lot of testing. So they have to paint all these panels with different types of finishes so that we can do testing with our abrasives and our polishes and things like that. So we always have people that are the technicians, and we also have technicians that do some of that testing, which is really a fun job, where you have to bond things together and then pull them apart and measure stress and strain and tensile strength and all this kind of stuff. And it's really a lot of fun to do. I've done some of that myself, and there's always positions like that open as well. So, never close the door to that. And then, I was just having dinner with a couple business owners last night. One owns a collision repair shop. The other guy owns a electronic scanning company where they go around and scan the cars and see what's wrong with the car through the computers. And they were both saying, hey, you got to let these guys know that there's so many opportunities in our industry for things like that, to be a technician for the electronics of the vehicle. And there's parts managers, and there's insurance estimators, and I mean, there's just endless opportunities in that collision repair and automotive aftermarket space. So and by the way, we work with SkillsUSA and our ICAR committee, where we actually raise money through a golf tournament and give away scholarship money. So there's a lot of scholarship money out there that you might not be aware of. So make sure you're talking to your counselors or whoever to find out where those opportunities for scholarships are as well.
Hey, Sean, speak to me about the education level that a lot of these technicians go through. It's not a 4-year program. It's
No.
really,
Yeah.
it's mostly it can be a certification, or there
Yeah.
are opportunities for an 18-month learning or a 1 year. Speak to me
Yeah.
about some of the options in that area.
Yeah, and that's a great question and a great path to take, because I work with a kid today that I was working with, and he started off as a technician, and he was doing all of our painting and kind of some odd jobs around there that we need done. But then 3M paid for his education to continue. So he was a contract worker for starting off as a contract worker for 3M, but then they paid for his college to finish and get his degree, and now he was just hired on as a full-time 3M employee. So that's a great path to take as well. So there's always a lot of opportunity when you're working for some of these larger companies, where they may pay for some of your education to retain you and move you up into the system.
Right, and some of those pathways might be 2-year pathways. There's 18-month pathways. There's
Yep.
12-month pathways, and I think each academic institution kind of offers a different flavor for that across the system. So good stuff.
Exactly.
I enjoy that. Thank you. So now we're on to the stuff that we never like to talk about, right? What is the most challenging or rewarding part of working in this industry? So Denise, I'm going to put you in the seat this time. Talk to me about that challenging part, but then there's also the rewarding part of working in your industry.
So the most challenging part, I think, in construction is construction tends to be fast-paced. So, if we look at Granite's in the business of solving problems. And if we look at me specifically, we solve problems and I get to lead teams. And both of those are very fast-paced and they're very time-intensive tasks. So for me personally, the challenge is always finding enough time to do what you need to do and do all of the things that kind of get pushed to the back burner that you really want to pull forward and get to. You find the balance, you really focus on, surrounding yourself with good people who help and support to get through that. You realize that as you're finding that and trying to allocate time, it all doesn't have to fall on you. There are lots of good people that can support you along the way. But as far as challenges go in the construction industry, I think it's a balance and a time issue. For me personally, the other challenge comes with, I'm a mother raising 3 teenage daughters. So the balance continues when I go home. I've got to balance right when I'm at work with my team and the tasks ahead of us. And when I go home, I have to be prepared to disconnect and be the mom that my freshman and my sophomore and my junior in high school all need me to be. So again, working through the time constraints that exist in construction and lots of other positions out there. For me, at the end of the day, the rewarding part of this is really easy. At the end of the day, with construction and in particular, what I'm involved in, I feel like we make a difference. So there's not a day that I go home and I don't feel that, we restored a pipeline today that gave a pipeline another 50 years of service life, and a community is better off for that. Or we repaired this structure and it protected the environment in this area. So for me, I think construction is very rewarding in that you have a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day, because what you're doing does indeed make a difference for you and for your kids and your grandkids and your great grandkids. So that'd be my biggest challenges and my rewards.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing that. Sean, I'm going to throw that one at you. What are your most challenges and rewarding part of working in this industry?
Yeah, I would agree with Denise. Balancing time is a big factor, and I'm lucky enough to work for a company that kind of stresses that work-life balance. But if you're not, you kind of got to take it upon yourself to do that. It's just not healthy to be all work all the time either. Even if you have a great work attitude. So that's one. I think also, like working for a large company, you really have to be a team player. And, you know, it's, you have your own ideas and everybody else has their own ideas. And, you know, sometimes your ideas aren't going to be the ones they run with. And that can be a little frustrating sometimes. So I think that's part of it is, you know, just working for a large company sometimes can be challenging because there's so many people and so many divisions. And, but at the same time, by the way, that can be a positive because, you know, like at 3M, we have so many divisions that if I get stuck with something, I could call our aerospace division and say, hey, what do you guys know about this type of adhesive? And you've been doing this on aluminum for all these years. Maybe you can enlighten me, you know, so we can bounce things off of each other all the time. So that's a good part of it as well. And I think the most rewarding part is kind of like what I said in my opening bio, where we can influence an industry. And I have kind of a cool story about that. When I first came to 3M, one of the things they asked me is, hey, what was one of the biggest challenges when you were actually doing collision repair on vehicles? And I said, I hated to drill spot welds because these cars are spot welded together and you have to drill all these spot welds by hand to remove the panels. So they said, well, figure something out. So I actually discovered a tool that was in another division of ours that was basically not even being used, called a file belt sander. And I discovered that you could grind those welds off much easier with much less effort and faster by using a file belt sander than a drill. And now that was probably 6-7 years ago. Now you can't even walk into a body shop anywhere and not see that file belt sander in that shop. So it was something that really influenced the industry. So that's really rewarding, and that doesn't come along every day.
Right, right. You got to be innovative and finding those opportunities and then sharing that, right? And that becomes
Right.
that team player kind of thing. And I think that's what the experience of and what skills helps create then as well, is that team player kind of thing. All
I'm
right,
glad you said sharing, because sharing is really important in a big company. You have to share ideas and be able to, you know, unselfishly share things with other people for sure.
Right. And I think that's a great pathway also to grow within the industry, as well as sharing that knowledge that you have, and then collectively you make a stronger component, or a stronger aspect to the business. So, all right, Doug, now I got to hear from you. What do you got?
A couple things. One thought I had there when Sean was talking earlier about in his company where there's lots of room to grow. My youngest boy wanted to be in IT. That was his dream. And through high school, he was taking all the extra classes at the Votech and getting certified in IT. And he was senior year, he was out applying for jobs and nobody'd hire him because he had no experience in IT. And so I recommended that he contact the software provider that we were using for rental, because they only hired rental people. And so he graduated, and at 18 years old, he packed up his truck and took off for Texas to work at now it's the world's largest software for rental. And he got in there with as a customer service person, and worked his way up. They actually offered him a job in IT, and he turned it down. And I said, "Why'd you turn it down?" He says, "Well, now that I'm here, I like programming better." So he moved on up. But it's getting your foot in the door. If in any industry, there's always room to learn and grow. Once you're get your foot in that door. If you got a good work ethic and desire to learn, you can move on up. But as far as challenging, I guess Denise brought up the fast-paced environment. We're 70% construction related in our rental, and yes, the construction industry is very fast moving, and so you got the same with rental. We start at 7 in the morning, and everybody's at the door, and they got to get their job done. And nowadays, labor is one of the biggest cost costs on any job. So time is money. So you're always rushing to get everything done. Makes the day go by very quickly though.
Right.
Now,
Speak to me about the rewarding portion then.
the rewarding part for me, I guess, is biggest is helping people find the right product to complete their job. You'll get somebody to come in and they've got a challenge where they've got to remove ceramic tile from a floor, and they're looking for the right tool that does it the fastest. Or they've got to drill a 6-inch hole through a 12-inch concrete wall. And being able to match the tool to what they're doing is always, they come back and they rant and rave about how great it went. That's always rewarding to me.
That's pretty neat. So you're really doing a lot of recommendations then on what to be done, and what a nice, and especially with a lot of those being maybe at home people or even people in construction just looking for, geez, what's the most efficient way to get through it. So I bet you've seen a lot of different stuff with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's in construction that a lot of times you're doing the same thing over and over, and then all of a sudden one odd thing comes up and you've never had to handle it before, and you got to figure out how to get this 30-foot steel beam into a basement and raise it up, without getting 25 people there to do it. So
Right.
That's like, okay, it's a challenge and it's rewarding when it works out well.
Sure. That's pretty neat. Let's go on to our next question. One thing you wish someone would have told you when you started out in either your education pathway or your career. So Sean, what's that one thing somebody wish you would have told you about what you're doing now? If you could bring it all back to the age of the young scrapping 18-year-olds where you ain't got a care in the world, or a 17-year-old or ain't got a care in the world, what was the one thing that you wish you had advice on?
Well, it's probably what you've heard a million times, but finish your education and take it seriously. Because like I said, I never finished my degree, and I kind of got sidetracked into the auto repair. And if I really put my mind to it, I could have probably gone back and finished. And but I ran into some financial challenges, but even then I probably could have figured out a way to do it. And I can tell you that looking at my winding career path, it could have been a much straighter line, and I could have reached success much quicker had I really finished my education. I could have gone straight to 3M like most of my coworkers. They came right out of college, went right to 3M, and they've been there 35, 40 years and retire, right? So I made it a lot harder on myself by not finishing my education and getting that degree. So I'm sure that's the most common thing a lot of people hear, but it's so true. And not to mention that even when I was in school, I had an opportunity from a company. They were an adhesives company, which that's what my responsibility at 3M now is adhesives. So I made it to that point. But even when I was in college, there was a job opening for an adhesive company, and I didn't have a 4.0. I was close, but somebody else that had the 4.0 came in and they ended up with that job. And that could have been like a real quick career start for me. But, I just wasn't quite there as far as my grades go either. So, just do the best you can, get the best grades you can. You never know when the difference between a 3.6 and a 4.0 might cost you a job. So, take that education seriously and finish up and complete that education. It's going to make your life so much easier. And I know that everybody's probably heard that a million times, but it is just so true, where if I had to do it all over again, I would definitely go back and do that.
Good. Doug, I'm gonna get after you on this. You've been through a little bit of everything there too, mechanic training and all that stuff. Speak to me about what you wish somebody had told you.
You know, I take ownership in your job, because it doesn't matter how menial it is, it affects everybody that you work with. So, you know, even if you're cleaning the toilets, do it the best you can, because the rest of the people don't want a dirty toilet. And they will remember that you did it, and they'll respect you for it. And I've tried to do that. And I've learned it, and I learned it from watching other people, that you can tell when somebody really cares about what they're doing, and it makes a difference. And so that's how I've tried now later throughout my career, that doesn't matter what I do, I give it 100% just to make sure it gets done right, because everybody gets affected by it. As far as the career or whatever, education, you know, I started off to be a farm mechanic. Coming off the farm, that was my dream. And a year into it, the farm economy went into a depression, and there were no jobs. I could make more money working at the gas station than I could be in a farm equipment mechanic. So I shifted careers and went into managing gas stations, and it just wasn't fulfilling. And so that's when I switched into the automotive repair, and I worked my way up through that, got my ASE certification, and kind of burnt out on that, because nobody likes getting their car fixed. They're always, myself included, it's never fun to spend $3,000 when your transmission goes out. And that's where being a mechanic still interested me. So I thought, well, I'm going to shift, and I'll get into heavy trucks. So I went back to night school for that, and then I stumbled into rental, and I'm glad I have. So I can't say that my career path that I wished it wouldn't have happened, because I learned a lot of variety of things on the way getting there, without, you know, picking my final destination when I was in high school. I never reached that. Well, I reached that, but I shifted away from it.
Sure. But it also sounds like you know, taking night school to, you know, continue to enhance your degree, or at least your opportunities, right, on what it could be, and the commitment to take a night school.
Yeah, and we can always learn. I started off with, we were a two-man show here when I started off 32 years ago, and Sean talked about how he can reach out to people within his company. I had a whole slew of people that I could reach out to, from suppliers to other rental stores, because I didn't know. I'd worked on tractors and cars and trucks, but I hadn't worked on rototillers and chainsaws and floor sanders. And so I had to call people and ask, you know, how do you do this? And in the rental industry, it's kind of like a family. I mean, everybody helps you out. I've had help from people in New Orleans to Duluth. I pick up the phone and call, and somebody's got an answer, and they're always willing to help.
That was before the YouTube days, when you can just YouTube the video on how to do it, right?
Yeah, that was before that.
Yeah, that sure was.
We were still using microfiche.
Right. All right, Denise, how about that word of advice, besides what your grandmother told you about driving a train?
Yeah.
Speak to me about what you wish you would have been told about either your education or career.
Yeah, so I think we've heard a lot about it on this call. So you don't have to land where you start. So don't be afraid that if you go down a path and that path isn't getting you the satisfaction that you want, it's not quite you, don't be afraid to change directions. Don't be afraid to speak up and make it known and take that path down, you know, down a different curve. You know, I'm a firm believer that at the end of the day, if you don't love what you're doing, you're never really going to reach your full potential. And when you're 16 and you're 17 and you're 18, let's face it, you don't exactly know, you don't know where you're going to land. So don't be afraid to throw yourself through catch a couple of curveballs along the way and change your direction to ultimately get you to where you want to land and where you'll ultimately be happy both at work and at home.
That is awesome. So it sounds like, you know, and you mentioned earlier about the shadowing and the tools to try to kind of get you to experiment with some different stuff. And like you had mentioned earlier, even reaching out to opportunities to reach out to HR people as well, and they'd be more than willing to say, hey, look, how would you like to try these jobs out or try out a job within this business? And I also think there's a lot of youth employment programs that are involved in communities also for that exploration. And the great thing about SkillsUSA, ta-da, what a great way to go ahead and try some different stuff, try some different fields. Maybe you like a little photography, but you like to weld too. Why not play with it? The world is open to you with this as well. So what a great way, and meet professionals in that industry, because those are your judges. So that really speaks to these opportunities, exactly what these people are talking about, our panelists are talking about. So, all right, let's go on to our next question. Come on now, there we go. And actually we're into where information is. We've hammered on these panelists pretty hard and gave them a hard time about give us some pathways, but here's some data that can help you, some links that can help you, and opportunities that you should be looking at as well, that might be able to help you with your career, help you to explore your career, explore other careers that you find interesting, and or, you know what, help you with your SkillsUSA opportunity also. So there's lots of stuff here. Make sure you take advantage of that. And I know for sure there's a couple of these that I've used as well and shared with young people as well. So, and here's some more available on the Sked platform. You can download it, and all the links, they're all hot links here to be able to use that. So should be available to you. And this was our SkillsUSA industry panelists, and hopefully we've got, are there any questions that we can help support? Jessica, did you have anything that came up?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. My mouse was in the wrong place. I haven't seen anything come in the chat, so I don't know if anybody who's on, who's viewing this right now has a question. They can unmute if they want to, or chat it to us.
Hey, Jessa, in the meantime,
Yeah.
we should probably mention, you know, it doesn't hurt to win the SkillsUSA contest either for job opportunities.
You're absolutely right.
We had an example where there was a female who went through the collision repair, and she took first in refinishing and I think second in collision. And 3M hired her before she even was finished with school. So never hurts to be successful at this contest either. It's a good feather in your cap.
Absolutely, absolutely. And even, you know, I'm glad you made that point, that that's a contestant that did really well at the state level, because I think that sometimes folks think they have to excel at the national level to be noticed, and that's not necessarily the case. If you can be a strong competitor at the state level, you're still going to get recognized for that, especially because we have so many, I mean, you know this, you're in meetings with me and some fantastic folks across the state who represent industry both within Minnesota and outside of Minnesota. And so there are absolutely opportunities that exist for our competitors as they're engaging with industry during and after the contest and showing their skills. So that's a fantastic point.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody, I just want to ask, there aren't any questions coming in. I know we only have a few more minutes, but do any of the panelists have anything you wanted to share that we didn't get to, or another point you wanted to add? Just want to open it up just in case.
Well, I wanted, can I share something?
Sure.
One thing that I've found is that what I really like, what Skills has to offer is, I knew when I was going through school that I wanted to be an engineer, and I also, you know, even my daughter wanted to be a nurse. I told her, I says, you know what, honey, you should take a welding course and learn about welding and just understand what it's about. Because I think when you can truly have opportunities like this to reach out in something that you might feel completely uncomfortable doing, that's called growth. And that growth leads to opportunities, because when you can challenge yourself and feel uncomfortable, but yet learning something new in a safe environment, boy, That's great thing. And you'll find, what you might find is you kind of enjoy it. You might find it was a good thing to try out. But at the very least, you tried something new, and you did it in a safe environment that you're able to grow in. So she enjoyed it. I took some welding classes as well when I was in school, and it was nice to. My father then said that I knew how to weld, which I really didn't, but I could go ahead and light something up, and I don't know if it was lighting me up, but he just said when we were on the farm, he just said, "Go ahead and weld this up," and I says, "Dad, I don't think you want me to do that." He says, "Well, you'll do it as good as I can." So yeah, I just wanted to say that this is a great environment to go ahead and have that exploration. So
Right.
Well, and I would also like to say that as somebody that's been to the Skills National Contest a few years, it's so impressive because these kids are so polite, and they're on time, and they're they're smart and eloquent and professional. And you talk to any business owner, and they'll tell you that's the first thing they're looking for in these kids is, hey, if you just show up on time, you're polite, and you make good decisions, there's somebody that they'll take a look at. So I think Skills does a great job in turning out these kids in that way.
Yeah, and that's, part of the Skills USA framework is personal skills and workplace skills along with your technical skills, because you can be really, really skilled at something, but if you're not employable and you can't be retained, then what's the point, right? You can't get a job, you can't keep a job. And so I think what I hear more and more from industry, and Doug, your industry is a great example of this. As long as you're employable, you can get trained in pretty much anything you want. And Sean, you made the point, 3M will even take it so far as to help you pay for it, right? And there's so many different industries and careers that will do that at this point. So I think, Jason, you're right. I think that it's important to challenge yourself and do it in kind of a safe space when you can still do that without feeling like you're going to crash and burn, right? But Denise, I like that point you made too about don't be afraid to switch it up. Don't be afraid to change your mind. I'm in my third professional career at this point, and I love it. And I wouldn't trade my path because I've learned so much in everything I've done. And all of those experiences have been very valuable, whether they were positive or negative in the moment. They've all been helping me feel successful now. And so I think that's important for students too. We only have 2 minutes. Does anybody else want to share anything? Doug, you unmuted. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say that experience is probably what the best teacher there is. Like you say, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, we learn from it. And it carries us through life.
Absolutely.
Sometimes those bad make the good even better. So yes, that eternal optimist in me.
Right.
And how many times do you look back and you say, that experience 3 years ago, that was a bad experience, helped me grow into this experience as well. I had that when I was a lean leader at GE, and I would drive in and I wondered, what the heck am I doing being a lean leader at GE and doing that on the floor and trying to figure it out. I knew nothing about lean at the time. I knew everything about design, knew nothing about lean. And I grabbed the steering wheel and I put my head against the steering wheel. I went, what am I doing? And it took me about a couple months to get into the rhythm, to figure it out, to say, you know what, this is darn fun, and embrace the challenge and embrace the opportunities. So, yeah. All right. Jessa, I think we're good. Are we good? I want to thank all three of you.
Much.
Right. I want to thank all three of you for very engaging. Really appreciate your time and your valuable time, your valuable knowledge that you're able to share as well. It's just a great thing to have. You're all just wonderful. I really enjoyed learning more about you, reading more about you, and I cannot wait to have the opportunity to either have a cup of coffee and visit and find some ways to collaborate or play or whatever it might be, whether it be through skills or whether it be through the center. Just that you guys should be very proud of all this stuff that you've done in your life and been able to share with these young people. So thank you.
My pleasure. Good luck to everybody out there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Jess, are we good? Or what do you need from me?